Okay. Welcome back to Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we told you we're going to continue to share life experiences. We have another amazing guest with another amazing testimony, and it's all been different. So that's what we love. We want to welcome Jeremy to Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast. Jeremy, thank you so much. It is an honor to have you as a guest. If you could come up and introduce yourself, and then City Sid is going to kick off that first question.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, ladies first, thank you for having me, and thank you for having the venue, the space for this conversation, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people have been through a lot of bad stuff, and it can be isolating, and people can feel like there's no one to talk to, no one understands, no one knows what it's like, no one's been through, and that story, that BS, that belief system, it holds people down. So my name is Jeremy, and I have been in the people helping business now basically 30 years professionally. Kung Fu master, international champion, soldier, factory worker, software tester. I've done a ton of different things, but the common thread throughout all of it is, how do you enjoy the process? How can you make the best out of what you've got and where you're going next? And what do you want to do with it? Because life happens, right? I had some stuff we'll get into, I'm sure, tonight, but I had some stuff happen at 5 and 6 years old that took me sideways for a couple of decades. And putting myself back together really gave me the tools to help other people do the same thing. Because I am now the exact person that I needed when I was a kid, and there was nobody there for me, and nobody knew how to read the signs. So that's the beginning of my story.
Well, thank you again for being here with us this evening. As we usually do with all of our guests, we usually start by asking, what the home structure was like growing up, what were your adolescent years like, and which kind of traumas you experienced in that time period. But as we know, your life experience, the brunt of your trauma did happen in this age group. So that's probably where we'll spend a good amount of time. So tell us a little bit about, what age everything kind of started, everything took off, why, who was at the, other end of the abuse, and, just kind of the situation around that.
Yeah, not a problem. So for me, we got to start with the fact that I was even born was already kind of cool, because my mom had 10 pregnancies, and my brother and I are the only two that lived. He was number 4. I was number 7. My parents only wanted 2. So there was some hormonal stuff for my mom. She lost a lot of babies. And so the fact that I even got born, kind of cool. But my parents did not want to be those hyperprotective parents. They're like, our kids got to learn to live on their own 2 feet. They got to learn how to face life. So I grew up with 2 parents, both loved each other, still do, active in their faith, unconditional love. A lot of support, a lot of encouragement. They had no idea what happened to me literally for 30 years. Because my stuff didn't come out to them until mid-30s. So I was a high energy kid, right? My brother, he's Eeyore, he's Charlie Brown. He'll sit and watch the grass grow. He's content, just chill, calm, low affect, just relaxed. I was the exact opposite. I was falling asleep standing up. I was on a leash because I would run out into traffic. I literally was pulled out of the road twice for being killed because I'm just so curious about everything. When we lived in Turkey, climbed on the roof of the house at 4 years old, just a ball of energy and just fearless. And that was kind of where I started. And then when we lived in Saudi, I was out playing where I wasn't supposed to be, right? We had a military compound that we lived in, and I was out past the security dunes, and one of the guards found me and he abused me. And running away from that moment, pulling my pants back up, like, I didn't blame him. I didn't blame the situation because I was 5. I blamed me, right? It's my fault. I did something where I went where I wasn't supposed to, and I got punished for that, but I can't tell my parents, because if I do, I'm going to get punished again, right? And so I picked up this thing, not what happened was wrong, but I picked up an identity of I was wrong. And so I had to hide. And so at 5 years old, that is not a great story for a little kid to have locked inside his head or locked inside his heart. And then we left Saudi, we came back to the United States, and then a couple of kids up the street, some things happened in the closet, and it was a brother and a sister, and there was some abuse there too. And now I'm left in a place of, not only am I wrong, right? Not only do I need to be punished, but like, I can't trust kids and I can't trust adults. So I'm 6 years old and I don't know who to trust, can't talk to anyone. And so I kind of had to socialize myself. And I realized very quickly, some part of me believed, if I make a mistake, if I lose, I'm going to die. Everything became life and death. And imagine playing tic-tac-toe with a kid 6, 7 years old, and the energy, the intensity they bring, they think they're going to die if they lose this game of tic-tac-toe. Imagine that intensity, right? Because I saw the other kids in school and daycare, I saw them pulling back because I was scary, and definitely intelligent on their part, because I could have been. And I realized that and went, that's not safe. The idea that I'm going to be isolated, the idea that I'm going to be ostracized, not a good thing. And so very quickly I learned to become a chameleon and a mimic, because I realized what people do is one thing, what they say is a second thing, and what they mean by what they say is a third thing. And I don't know how to put these together. So I can't trust kids. I can't trust adults. I got to hide. I got to be a mimic. I got to be a chameleon. And I'm trying to figure out saying, meaning, and doing, and how does this all go together? So I folded into myself a lot. And I had a lot of living in my own head for a very long time. And I was locked basically about 20 years, anger, survival, back against the wall. I had friends, but I never let them fully in on what was going on with me, because that was not safe. You can't ever be fully seen, because it's okay if I make you abandon me on my terms, but don't you dare abandon me not on my terms. That's not fair. And so that was a lot of my early childhood. And I started doing cross-cultural religious studies. 9, 10 years old, I'm reading the Upanishads, the Rig Veda, the Torah, the Bible, Buddhism, Taoism. I had a buddy in high school that got into Wicca. So I was doing a lot of cross-cultural stuff, Buddhism, just a ton of material, because I'm trying to figure out, what is this thing we live in? And so, that brings us up to basically about 20 when I started martial arts.
Okay. I want to go back. I'm going to go back into the childhood because abuse, sexual abuse, I'm noticing, even working, it is just a ton of it going on, more than we could imagine. First, I want to ask, was the I guess this was a soldier that abused?
Yeah, it was a Saudi military guy. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to ask if he was American or Saudi.
Nope, Saudi.
Okay. How did he, even though you crossed where you weren't supposed to be at, how was he able to grab you? Did he?
Well, I mean, I'm a trusting 5-year-old kid, and you've got a security guard, motioning and making noises like, "Hey, come here, kid! Like, you're not supposed to be here." Mm-hmm. What am I gonna do? I'm 5. Like, oh, okay. So yeah, it was super, super simple.
Okay. And do you think that it was because you were American he did that, or?
I have zero idea. Obviously, something happened to him that made him think that this is an appropriate thing to do to a child, right? Because like that had to come from somewhere. But zero idea. I mean, I was so in my imagination, and I was just so positive. Like, I look at my daughter now, and she's 11, and she was like 14 weeks one day early, born at like a pound. But she's so positive and she's so in the light. And I think about who she is now is who I could have been then, except my life kind of went sideways. But we're able to seal in a lot of good stuff, not out of like Pollyanna positive thinking that's like not supported by anything, but like actually like helping her how to take control of the meaning of events, right? If somebody's mean to her, is that a reflection of her? Or is that they've got something going on that they're throwing at her first? Right. We're able to like unpack that stuff. So, things happen, but what do we do with it is more important.
Now, what was, did you take, this information to any adults when it did happen? Mm-hmm. How were you internalizing that? What did you understand about what happened? What was kind of your child thought process at the time.
Yeah. So a lot of that, it got blocked, right? Because I just like deleted the memories because I couldn't process it. But that undercurrent of I'm wrong, I've got to hide, I'm not safe, like, and I have to survive. Like those were kind of the undercurrents running in the back of my head all the time, even if I could not explain it, because the memories really didn't come back. I had glimmerings growing up, little flashes, but the memories didn't come back until mid-20s, and it took another 10 years to really unpack and work through them all. But it was a lot of just this sense of like something's not okay or something's not right. I have not alopecia, but the other one. But I've got I have alopecia too, but I've got birthmarks that are actually the crucifixion, the stigmata on my wrists and my ankles and my belly. And at 9 years old, I knew what the stigmata was. And for those of you that aren't in the Judeo-Christian background, it is the sacrificial wounds of Christ. So I've got, or the crucifixion wounds of Christ. So I've got the stigmata. I've got birthmarks here on both wrists and both feet / ankles. And so it's like a big part of me was afraid at 9 years old, I'm the second coming of Christ and I'm going to destroy the world and I hate myself. That's not a healthy place for a kid to grow up at all. And there's no one I can talk to about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, I want to ask, after the assault, did your behaviors change? Did your parents see a change in you?
Not then, because like I don't know that I fully processed. I know by 14, yes, because my mom and I. So a lot of times in life, when you deal with people, you get a loving response or a cry for help, right? Positive energy, negative energy, warm, big, happy, small, sad, cold. And so I remember one time when I was 14, and my mom and I are having an argument in the kitchen because she wants me to wash the dishes, and I'm like, I'm not going to wash your damn dishes, and I threw them in the sink. And then she stopped and she gave me a cry for help, right? She asked me, what happened to you? You were so much nicer when you were 4. And that was her trying to process or trying to understand, why am I so mean and hateful and angry and all this stuff? And I did not have a good answer for her, but I was not in a place to receive what she told me as anything positive. I took it as judgment. I took it as an attack. I took it as, we loved you more when you were 4 and dependent on us than we love you now at 14 when you have your own ideas, your own thoughts, your own wants. And you don't want me at 14, you want me at 4. Well, screw you. And I told her, I gave her a cry for help, which is I told her I fucking killed him and took his place, deal with it, bitch. And I walked away. And I look back on that now and I'm like, damn it. Like, they weren't trained. They didn't know what to do, right? They didn't know how to process it. But like that right there to me now is like, that's such a huge red flag of this kid has been hurt and he doesn't know how to process it. And he's screaming for help, but no one knows how to read the signs. No one knows how to hear what he's saying, because it was just such an absolute affront. And she didn't deserve that. Like, I'm living in your house. I'm eating your food. You're cooking for me. Why not help clean up? Why not have some responsibility and contribute to the household that I'm getting the benefits of? You lazy crap. Like, if I could grab the younger version of me and just kind of shake him for a second and say, like, damn it, we'll buy Bitcoin, but damn it, stupid kid, like, calm down. You're hurting and you just don't know how to ask for help. And that's really what it was, is I had this judgment of myself and I was punishing myself and making myself wrong, so that I can't receive anything coming from the outside except through the filters of, but I'm worthless and stupid and dumb and you should punish me and you're not. So I'm going to make you punish me.
What was your mother's reaction when you said that to her?
Stunned more than anything. Yeah, I don't remember the rest of that conversation because I stormed off. You know, and we had a thing in our family where you could walk away if things got too emotional. You could go for a walk, because when my mom and dad first got married, my mom's family did a lot of whose fault is this and who do we blame, and a lot of guilt and a lot of and my dad's family is military / engineers. We have a problem we need to fix. How did we get here? A lot of we teamwork sort of culture. And so my mom and my dad got into a fight, young in their marriage, and he went for a walk, and he was walking out the front door, and I'm just going to go cool off. And he went for a walk, but he didn't say, I'm going to just go cool off. He just walked out the door. And so my mom was in the kitchen and had access to the door. And so she grabbed a glass and threw it at his head and missed. And it went through the front door that was open, and it landed in the driveway, and it shattered. And when it hit the ground and shattered, she hit the ground because she collapsed, because I could have killed him. And why did I get so mad? And why is he not listening? And so he came back in and said, listen, we have a problem that we are going to fix. I am going to calm down and come back so we can have an intelligent conversation. And then he went and did, and they created a family rule about, if you need to cool off, you are allowed, right? Because some people say what you got to say, whether you hurt someone or not, and other people get yourself under control first, and then they marry each other. And that leads to all kinds of problems. But they figured out a family rule, and we kind of carried that forward, where my brother and I could suggest family rules, and we've carried that into my family and my marriage with my wife, and new family rule. We don't go to Epcot and get on a ride if she says she has to go to the restroom, because we're going to go take care of that, remove that tension and stress in case the ride slows down and we get stuck, because having to pee on a roller coaster when it's stuck is not a fun experience. So new family rule. If you say, even in line, I think I have to go to the bathroom, we're getting out of line. It's okay. We're fine. This is perfectly fine, right? Because we're not going to have the stress and the fear on the ride. It's okay. We take ownership. And so, that dynamic, when I walked away, my mom didn't say anything. Did she want to? Probably. But that family rule of you can walk away, when obviously I was in a high emotional state, let him walk, let him cool down, let him calm down. We'll revisit this.
Sorry. Did the event make you feel any way in particular about Saudi people or Arab people as a whole? Did you kind of formulate an idea, as a child? Even, there's adults that, if they're victimized by a certain type of person, the whole group is kind of shaky to them. So did that cause you any issues, living abroad or amongst Saudi or Arab people?
No, not in the slightest. Because I grew up, we were in Saudi, but we also visited Greece, Italy, Spain. We got to see a lot of the culture. We lived in Turkey for several years. We lived in Saudi for several years. Just being in the culture, it's funny to me now, seeing more people in the thobe and gutra for men, but seeing people in the head coverings going, oh yeah, I remember that. I actually have one from when I was a kid and I was there. But I had been more traveled in second grade. I had traveled more than most of the teachers that I went all the way through high school with. I had been in more countries, and for some of them, I had been in more states than they had. And at the time, I didn't realize how much the fact that I traveled and been through Europe, been through the Middle East, been through Southeast Asia. We went to Thailand. I didn't realize how much that just made me, I just see people as people. I don't generalize large groups. All blanks are blank. My brain doesn't make that jump, because part of that being a mimic and being a chameleon, I study individuals. Every group of whatever ethnicity, culture, religion, creed, race, whatever the descriptor, there's always different examples within every subclass or every subculture or every sub whatever. There's always different people doing different things. All generalizations are bad, especially when dealing with specifics. And so I'm not a huge fan of generalizations or projecting or jumping to conclusions, which made me interesting as a kid, because I would ask stupid questions, like someone's crying and they're like, oh, what's going on? My grandfather died. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I need the context, because I don't know, well, he had cancer for a long time and it was a slow, painful thing, and now he's dead and past all pain. Sounds like a good thing. Or he was walking across the street and got run over by a car. Sounds like a bad thing. I don't know until I have a context of well, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And it makes me weird sometimes, because I don't immediately jump to a conclusion. I just kind of, okay, I heard the information, I'm just going to hold it. Right? Somebody's yelling at you. Okay. They want to be heard. It's my first thought. Like they don't feel heard. That's why they're getting loud. But they're yelling because they don't feel heard, or because they're scared, or because they're angry, or because they're hard of hearing, or because they're just a boisterous, loud person, or because their heart feels distant to my heart and they're trying to cross the gap and they think volume is the best way to do it. There's 6 different stories for that one pattern of behavior. And so my brain contextualizes very, very quickly and expands context. So I don't jump to an immediate conclusion and then like get mad because, well, how dare you and who do you? So that's really kind of like a benefit of how I grew up and the need to like, how do I need to show up in this moment? Right? Do I need to be more aggressive or do I need to be more passive? Do I need to? And so when I work with my clients, like I deal with relationship stuff with guys, my friend, do you want to be right or do you want to get a result? Because what you're doing right now, help me understand, how is that getting you the result you said you wanted? Oh, it's not. Okay, so what could you do different? And I go right into that context and like, oh, well, could it be this? And then you do that. Or could it be this other thing? And you do that. So it's a lot of like, how do we figure out and mix and match? Because human expression is amazing, right? I grew up on the Muppets, and the Muppets Take Manhattan. People's is people's. The more you're around people, the more you see people's is people's.
I was going to ask now, you've moved to Saudi, you've moved back to the States, and now you're around, I guess, kids that just, they're doing inappropriate things. How did you end up in a situation, not a situation, how did you end up or pulled into being sexually abused in the States?
I don't have any idea how we got there, honestly.
Okay.
I do know some, like we were just, kids get together and play in the neighborhood. That was like, because this is back early 80s. So it was like kids just go outside. There's a whole crew of kids and, you're playing random stuff. Somehow I ended up in somebody's house. Somehow I ended up in somebody's bedroom closet with a brother and a sister. And the brother put his dick in my mouth and then I like chomped on it. And I had a disassociative moment because the only memory I have is biting down, him screaming bloody murder because I did not go gentle into that good night. I chomped down like I meant it, like my life depended on it, because life and death. But my only memory of that moment was him screaming, and my awareness was like a crow floating over the house. Like I could see the roof of the house that we were in. And I know where we were in the closet. I know where we were positioned, and she was standing next to him, but I wasn't there in my body in that moment. I was completely out of the room. I was floating above. Whether I actually was or it was my imagination, zero idea. Don't really care. But I remember, anybody wants to stick a dick in my mouth, I'm biting the fucker off. Like I already know that because it happened when I was 6. So don't send me to prison. I'm going to hurt some people fast.
Well, it's good your reaction did that, because we have a lot of people that come. They just don't know what to put in possessions. Yeah.
Well, what happens a lot of times in our brain is when we are put into something we don't understand or know what to do, then our brain will go into the unconscious and it'll pull up maps of what can I do that is similar to this, right? Because I teach people how to fall safely, and a lot of people are like, oh, but it happens so fast. I'm like, cool. Well, how often do you practice falling? Never. Okay, then it's going to happen that you don't have anything in there to build off of. So your unconscious has to go and build a map if you don't have one to use. While it is building that map, time is moving, which makes you feel like everything is going faster. So there's like 7 different reactions to stress. One of them is freeze, because we don't have an answer. We haven't thought about it. And this is where if you use your imagination to role play various circumstances and imagine what you would do, you're creating those unconscious maps. So one of my Kung Fu students was on the bus in Dayton, Ohio, where I used to have my school, and 3 nuns got on the bus, and he grew up and went to parochial school, had the nuns. So he's thinking, if those nuns pull out rulers to attack us, I'm taking her at the knee and I'm going to cover this one this way. I'm going to move her into this. But in his mind, he's creating, if they attack me, what am I going to do to defend myself? Now, is it a realistic scenario? Probably not. But the fact that he's running those simulations in his brain and coming up with proactive answers, what does that do to his unconscious body language? What does that do to his feeling of confidence? Right? Bad actors need prey. Predators need prey. They need people whose body language fits a certain profile, right? Part of my certifications, I went and got trained in Krav Maga, and they have one of the trainings where they show us, it's a parking garage, it's a camera this way in a parking garage entrance, and you see people walking by. And they took that video and they showed it to people in prison who had committed violent crime. And they asked them, who would you attack? 98% they picked the same people because they're looking for rounded shoulders, chin down, walking slow, people who are not going to assert themselves, people shoulders back, head up, moving with a sense of purpose. They're looking for people who won't fight back. They're looking for prey, easy meals. So when you start role playing, if something were to happen, if a bear were to break into this store, where would I go? What would I do? Just having that answer, even though it seems kind of like, dude, chill, like not realistic, but having the answer for it changes your body confidence, changes the way you present yourself, changes the feeling, because you're like, no, I would proactively do X or Y or Z. And so, but that's the thing, is seeing yourself as the victor, seeing yourself as the success, seeing yourself to the healthy outcome. It works for athletes when we talk peak performance, right? I'm an international champion, multi-time US national champion. It works in business deals when you see yourself giving a good presentation. Like the more you can internally rehearse positive outcomes to complicated situations, you're more likely to be successful than if you don't practice that stuff. So, the way our mind works, the way the stories we tell create the games we play, we have a lot of more control of this than we think. And so, that's part of that. It happened so fast, I didn't know what to do. That's fair, perfectly normal, perfectly natural, because have you practiced, rehearsed? Have you imagined? Have you thought about? Have you put yourself in similar environments? Well, no. Sounds like you're a regular person. Sounds like a normal, healthy human behavior.
Now, we do usually guests that we have that have been through this type of abuse. Usually, it's not a one-time occurrence. Now, again, I'll always like to reiterate that we don't want to make it seem like it was your fault at all. That is not the gist of my question. But why do you think that you were targeted more than once, or what is it about I guess maybe your esteem or your aura or your energy that I guess kind of invites that type of demon spirit almost into your arena? Like what do you think made it feel like it was okay for them to try you, essentially?
Yeah. No, it's a good question, because you'll see sometimes patterns of, people's self-worth getting impacted, and then who they allow themselves to be around. If your self-worth goes down, right, predators are looking for prey, right? Victimizers are looking for victims, and predators, human predators, they have almost a sixth sense, because they're looking at us like cattle or like toys. They're looking at us. There's certain tells that we will have that they are keying in on, and they're paying attention to at a much higher degree, because they're looking for that opportunity. They're going to find it, right? And so me not having clear boundaries, I speak up for myself, I say no and I mean it. And really, I mean, with the boy, no means no, and boom. And that was definitely a watershed moment, because I never had anybody try anything inappropriate beyond that moment ever again, because I had within me like a physical no, that's not happening. And so it's really, if you don't learn to assert yourself, if you don't learn how to put that out unequivocally, right? And it's being able to speak the language of the person, because someone tried to touch you inappropriately. Great. I touch you back inappropriately in the face, in the eyes, in the testicles, in the throat. Like, I'm going to touch you back. You want to touch me without my permission? That means I get to touch you without your permission. Thanks. And I'm going to speak better than you. Right. But we have to kind of like come to that place inside ourselves. And for some people, that's not their vibe, that they're not going to get to that because they've been hurt. They don't want to hurt anybody else. Right. in my Kung Fu school, we had the wave bags, which is a giant canvas bag. It's just a big round thing. And then we got Bob in, and Bob is it's a plastic human body. It's a torso. It's rubber. It bends. And I had one of the girls in the program, she's 14, 15 years old, teenager. She's punching the heavy bags. She's fine. She punches the wave bags. She's fine. She punches Bob. She starts crying. Because the idea that she's going to use her fist to hurt another human being, it hurts her heart. And, God love her. Like, absolutely, that's the right response. Except where that guy is touching you without your permission or touching your friends without their permission. And he's not respecting he's not respecting words, then he has to learn to respect your body. You have to learn to speak a language that he can respect, that he can understand, right? It's the same thing dealing with bullies. It's like, oh, be nice to the bully. No, you got to cut that shit off, because being nice to the bully only makes them more powerful, right? I wrote a couple of articles on why anti-bullying doesn't work, because it all reacts based on what the bully does or doesn't do. If we teach people to be bully proof, I don't need your permission. I don't need your approval. You don't get to touch without my permission. End of conversation. This is not a debate. This is a statement of fact. And if you cross that line, I will make you clear that that was inappropriate. And I'll use my words once. And if you do it again, I'm not using words. I'm going delicate body parts and viciously. Because the risk on the other side is my life, my liberty, my limbs. No, thank you. And we got to raise kids like that.
I want to ask, so through both of the abuses, you're in school. How did your behavior change in school?
I realized, and by the time I by the time I was 7, because that's when the boy was at 6. So by 7, yeah, I was fine. I'm not going to let teachers control me. I'm going to you can't punish me to force compliance, because I don't care. I know you're not going to kill me, so you're not going to threaten me. You're not going to intimidate me. But I'm not so stupid as to be so openly oppositional or openly defiant, because that's dumb. Why would I fight the authority that's already there? I'm just going to get in trouble and get stuff taken away, leverage it. I remember we had to write a paper. I was in 5th grade. We had to write a paper for something, and I didn't write the paper thing. But, the teacher's coming around looking at what we're doing. So I was like, oh, crap. So I scribbled on paper, scribbled on a thing, like I wrote a paragraph. And so she comes around, and I'm reading my paper to my small group. And then she looks at what I'm doing, and I look at her, and she's like, what's that? And I said, my paper. And she says, it looks like scribbles on a page. And I said, no, it's shorthand. And she said, okay, read that first line. And I read the first line. I said whatever I said. And then she said, read the second line. And then I read the second line, and I said whatever I said. And she said, great. What was that first line again? Damn it. I didn't remember what I said. Damn it. She got me. And then it was like I reacted to her like peer to peer. And I was like, no, that was good. You caught me. Nicely done. Respect. Like I didn't say respect because then I didn't have that language pattern, but I didn't look at her like I'm a kid and you're an adult. We're equal. We're pairs. We're at the same level. And so I drove the teachers crazy at times because I was wickedly intelligent, but you're not going to force me to do anything I don't want to do. You're not going to threaten me. You're not going to bully me. We're going to call your parents. Great. Go right ahead. My mom doesn't work. She's at home. What are you going to do? Yell at me? Okay. And we good? All right, cool. Thanks. See ya. Right. So it was like emotionally, none of that stuff touched me because I don't care. Right. The only thing I care about is my safety. And I know you're not going to commit violence on me. I'm good. So what else you got? I'm going to lose privileges. Okay. Don't care. This is the problem when you use pain to force compliance is certain types of people will just give up the thing because I'm not going to let you control me. That was really the game for me. I'm not going to let you control me. I'm not going to let you dictate me. I'm not going to let you bribe me. I'm going to go sideways, and now we're both pissed because neither of us got what we wanted. Fuck you. And what do you do with a kid like that? Well, you play with him and you get creative because you find where's his actual leverage and you play inside that place, but not to control. But like we were talking earlier, you're free to choose, but choices are going to lead to results. You can't escape the results of your choices. that stuff is going to come back at you. And my job is to facilitate that. Now, if you want good outcomes, cool, we can make that happen. But if you want more pain, we can do that too. I'm ambivalent, right? It's the same thing I do with my kids sometimes when they're screwing around. I'm like, hey, look, I'm here to teach you about the results of your actions, good or bad. Doesn't matter to me which way we go. If you need me to yell at you, I guess today's the day I yell at you. But this is my warning. You want to go a different direction? Because we can do that too. I'd prefer it. But if you need to get yelled at today, that's okay with me. And I just took back the power from my kids, and they're like, I'm like, I'm here to raise a healthy human being, kid.
Now, with that being said, with you being, what sounds like kind of a free thinker, kind of nonconformist, just kind of march to the beat of your own drum. Mm-hmm. What drew you in about martial arts? And then, was it how did you, figure out that Kung Fu was the lane for you? I guess what about Kung Fu specifically outside of other forms of martial arts, kind of took precedence over your interests?
Yeah, no, this is fun because we're actually, this coming weekend is instructor training. My teacher, Grandmaster Ming, it's his birthday. We always do a thing first weekend in December. And one year we were there, my wife was in the audience, and we're talking about how I got involved in martial arts, and she didn't know the full story until I told it that day. And she's like, why am I just hearing about this now? And so what happened was a buddy of mine and I, we had just gotten out of high school. We're 17, 18 years old. We were 20. We were 20 years old. We went to pretty much all the schools in Dayton and took classes and took a trial or went to see what they do. And Grandmaster Ming was Master Ming at the time. But I thought I knew some stuff, right? Full of my own ego, full of my own sense of stuff. I'm smart, I'm capable, blah, blah, blah. A lot of ego. But he said something really clever with me, which was, it sounds like you got a lot going on. Seems like you're pretty smart. What I would say to you is try to break the system, because I've been trying my whole life and I haven't yet, but maybe you could do it. And it's like, hell yeah. All right. Yeah. I'll show you. Think you guys know how to do martial arts? Like, that was the perfect thing to hook me to and it's been 30 years. and I'm still training and still playing and still doing stuff because he got me. He got the vibe, he got the thing. And what's funny though, the part my wife didn't know, I found out about his school because a couple of friends of mine and I had been casing a warehouse around the corner from where his school was, because in that warehouse, this was back in the days when you couldn't get Japanese animation, comic books. You couldn't get the anime and the manga. You could only get it through backroom deals and illegal and all kinds of stuff. And this guy had this bootleg operation he was running where he was duplicating tapes on a large scale. And so we were going to rob him because we were 17 and we're white kids from the suburb and no one's going to hold it against us. So we're going to go and rob him and then report him to the FBI. That's how I found out about where Grandmaster Ming's school was. Never said I was a good person, right? And it was for us, it just the math made sense. And it was stupid, suburban kid crime that we're going to go not rob, where there's actually money, or not in a place because we were going to go after hours and no one's there. And we never went through with it because we had this whole plan. And the first piece of it, the guy that was supposed to do the first piece messed up. And then everybody panicked. And I'm like, what are we doing? Let's just do it anyway. Let's go. Just get a sledgehammer. It's fine. We'll force the door. And it never happened, but it was just, and my wife was like, why am I just hearing this now? I did not know this about my husband. I was like, that's a different guy. The guy you have now wouldn't do that kind of thing. The kid that back then, different guy. So I don't know what to tell you.
I want to say something because you mentioned something that is just always the talk. You said we're white kids from the suburb. We're not going to we're just going to get a petty crime. We're going to get all.
Yeah. Yeah. And this was
back
in the early 90s.
Why you say that?
Because unfortunately, that is the truth. Right? Because never been in trouble with the law, never been, a little bit of stupid stuff in school, detention or whatever, but nothing whatever. And yeah, like I hate to say it, and it makes me mad because it's not fair and it's not right. But the reality is the reality. But the cool part is having conversation. We can change that reality. We could change that culture if we decide, but it requires, we got to step into it. Same way dealing with abuse and trauma, we got to step into it, because dancing around the issue solves nothing. It changes nothing. It grows nothing. We got to step in boldly to say, this is not okay. We need new standards.
I love it though. I love the truth. I love the transparency, because folks will get mad if, this conversation is like this big debate, but I love how you were very transparent and honest.
I mean, we got to be real. Like in our Kung Fu system, our first principle is be real, because we're dealing with life and death. And if you're not dealing with life and death first, everything else is an illusion and a story. It's a joke. But once we've dealt with reality, the other side of it is be compassionate. And compassion is about room for things to exist. Because if you're full up to here with your own thoughts and opinions and experience and limitations and arguments and anger and whatever, there's only this much left for the rest of humanity. There's not a lot of room for the rest of all human experience. And in case you didn't get the memo, other than for one trifling example, all the rest of humanity is made of other people. So being up to here with yourself, not a great strategy. But if you're totally empty of yourself, you don't know where you stand. That's not a good idea either. So we have the idea when we talk about compassion being halfway empty, right? You know where you stand, but then you're still open to other interpretations, other experiences, other ways of being, because we don't have time to make every mistake in life. So if we can learn from other people's mistakes and not make them, they're helping us. And if they can learn from our mistakes, like this conversation, then we're helping them. It's a win-win, right? So be real, be compassionate, and where those two intersect creates moments of beauty. And how can we do that? That's our Kung Fu system. We have monks that are fighting to do what? To do exactly this. How do we create these moments of beauty? Someone offers you violence, you refuse to accept it, but you don't have to give it back to them. You can just absorb it and ground it and give them peace. And for some people, that may be the first bit of peace they've ever experienced in their whole entire life. Right? There's a story about a Buddhist master, and this guy breaks in to rob from him and like take his stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, there's some money and there's a shirt over there, in the dresser. Just leave me my books, leave me my body, and we're fine. And the guy takes the stuff, and then he's like leaving. He's like laughing at the monk. He's like, oh, you're so stupid. You're so dumb. Just let me take your stuff. And he starts to like leave. And just as he's about to get to the door, the monk says, hold it. When somebody gives you a gift, you say thank you. And the guy's like, oh, okay, thanks. And he leaves. Well, 2 days later, he gets caught by the police, and they're taking him back and making him give everybody the stuff back. And they're going to go, put him away in prison. And they bring him to the monk, and they say, did he steal from you? And the monk says, no, that was a gift. He even said thank you. And the guy was like, what the hell? He went and did his time. When he got done, he came back to the monk, and he studied with him, and he became a very famous monk in his own life. Because you didn't have to do that. You could have punished me like everybody else did. You could have hurt me like everybody else did. And you chose to be compassionate with me? What are you? How can you do that? How can you be that powerful? And so that's the opportunity we all have if we choose. But we got to stop the violence inside ourselves first. We got to stop the fighting and the arguing and the blaming first here. Because if we have peace, there's some peace in the world that we can give.
In what ways, negatively and positively, do you believe that your experiences have shaped your parenting style that you've noticed since having children?
Yeah, it's all positive now, because I worked through it before I became a dad, and I had that luxury, right? I had that gift, I had that privilege to not get married until I was 38 and not have my daughter till I was 39. Problem was, I wanted to be a dad since I was 9. And so I had 30 years to get ready, and I had a lot of stuff to work through, because if I had had kids in my 20s, I would have been a monster, because I was so rigid and narrow in my thinking. Talk about compassion. I had no room to breathe because I was literally always fighting. Even as I learned martial arts until my mid-30s, I didn't really have emotionally, I didn't have home here. I didn't belong anywhere. And so try to raise kids in a place where I don't believe I belong. How the hell am I going to raise them? And so getting that access to them after, right? And I had a stepson come in at 3 years old, and then my daughter was factory original with my wife and I. I would not have been a good dad. I would not be the man that I am now if I had the kids younger. They wouldn't have the version of me they have now. And I don't get it 100% perfect. And I have to apologize, and I have to walk it back sometimes because I'm in a triangle, and I'm just dealing with stuff I got to deal with work and with clients, and I'm not always available the way I would like. But I'm able to be so much more present for them. And I know for my dad, he read a book called Games People Play back in the 70s. It's an outgrowth of transactional analysis, and it talks about relationships from the parent, the adult, and the child, and like how can you have adult to adult relationships. And they talked in the book Games People Play, here's how people play dysfunctional games, here's how to break the game. And they stopped. There's nothing in that book about how to replace the game with something better, which is why I wrote Your Best Child Ever Is This Game Worth Winning. I wrote this as an answer to that other book, because how can we create a game where you get to feel good and I get to feel good? Win-win or no deal. You feel warm, big, and happy, and I feel warm, big, and happy. And so with my daughter, with my stepson, like, we're able to have a dialogue about, is this helping you feel warm, big, happy, or not so much, positive or negative? And it was always like, not feel good or bad, right? Because now they exist in opposition, good or bad. But are you feeling good or not so much? Because now we've got a scale. We're focusing. Our language is focusing. Is that the truth? Are you being honest with me? Or are you telling me a story? Because what do I want my kids' mind to be focused on? I want them focused on the truth. I want them focused on the positive. I want them to focus on the opportunity, what's available. So I've got to make the language that I use with them help that. Right? If I say don't stop, the brain has to create stop before it can negate it, before it can cross it out. It has to create the thing before it can remove it. But if I say keep going, if I say walk please, don't run, walk please. Don't run, I got a kid running, because I gave them the idea because I said run. I gave them that. It's not on them, it's on me. I'm the leader. I'm the parent. I'm the adult. I'm the one communicating the reality. So do I want you to don't forget, or do I want you to remember? Say what you actually want and train your kids to the same thing. Well, don't ignore me. Oh, you mean pay attention? Okay, I can pay attention. Tell me more. Actually, you know what? I got to close this loop. Let me get this done. Give me 2 minutes and then I'm all yours. Can we make that happen? Right? When I had the Kung Fu school, we're talking. Kid comes up, whatever. Hold on 1 second. Give me 1 second. Okay, do you have to go to the bathroom? Do you need a drink of water? Can you hold on to it for a second? Okay, thank you. Okay, finish this conversation. Thank you. Okay, now give it to me. What you got? What's happening? Because I'm training them. I listen with my nose. 2 eyes, 2 ears. I want to get everything. I don't listen with the side of my head, because now how many eyes do you see? 2, but how many ears? Only 1. I'm going to miss some stuff. But if I'm this way, now you've only got 1 eye and 1 ear. You're going to miss more. And I want to get everything. So let me be fully present with you. So and I get consent from the kids, right? And I saw this. I was at an elementary school and I was doing a program, and I saw these 2 teachers talking, and a girl came up to ask the teacher a question. And the teacher turned to the little girl, and she's, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and said, "There's adults talking." And in my mind, and this is my mind back 6 years old, my mind, but now as well, the fact that teacher modeled that language, that tonality, that behavior for that child, when that teacher then goes to that child and she's talking to a friend of hers, in my mind, if that kid says, "There's kids talking," and ignores the teacher, fucking justified. Because the teacher did it first. The teacher normalized it for the child, so the child's going to mirror it back. And if the teacher's pissed, then raise your standard first. not punish the child because they're not capitulating to your dictates. And that was my energy at 6 years old. And this is why a lot of adults had problems with me, because I also used to read a thesaurus. In fact, it's right over there. But I used to read a thesaurus every night when I went to bed because I love words. And I'm very pedantic. And I can be effuse. Let's play.
We're almost at time, but I want to ask, the moment that you told your parents what happened to you, what was their reaction, and did you feel a relief?
Yeah, definitely there was an openness and a relief there. My dad was like, I wish we had known, because that guard would have disappeared into the desert. Like, absolutely categorically, my dad was a much angrier man when I was a kid. My brother and I used to play a game called Dad's Coming, and we would flap each other on the head, and it would make this coconut noise like you just did. But we would sit there and whack each other. Dad's coming, whack, and we'd smack each other. And then he got tired of that, so he came in and thwacked us both in the head. But that's how he would get our attention, is he would thwack us on the head. You know, so back then, yeah, my dad would have had that guy removed from life, like absolutely. But they didn't find out about it for 30 years. So, but it was the summer of 2011 when I told them. And so that would have put me about 36. And I needed support because my life was unraveling at that point. I had a relationship that had failed, and I had spent 2 years emotionally dead, and I was coming out of it, and I was not in a healthy place. I'm not a predator, but I was definitely behaving along unhealthy lines, and I was violating my values, and I'm putting myself in situations that could have gone catastrophic. And I had to get me out of my own way. And I think that was the pattern of self-destruction I was on, was to get me out of my own way or die, one of the two, because that was going to be the conclusion. Either I grow out of this and grow completely through it, or I die because of being inappropriate in various ways. And so that was the journey that I had 2011, 2012. And it was not easy to take ownership of just what I'm capable of doing. But that's not who I am. And really, my identity had a big transformation that year or two, because 2009, 2010, half of 2011, man, I was just gone. I was so not in a healthy place. The beginning of 2011, I started to come out of it, went to a Tony Robbins event, and that moved a bunch of stuff for me. But I knew, like, I needed to, he does Unleash the Power Within, Life, Wealth, Mastery, Date with Destiny. And when I read through what all they were, like, Date with Destiny is where I needed to be. And that let me rewire. It let me recover the memory before the abuse. Because up until that point, at 36 years old, my earliest memory was the abuse. I could not clearly remember stuff before that, like 4 years old, things like that. And because of stuff they do at that workshop, I categorically caught the memory, what was going on before that abuse. I got those memories back, and it was such a positive place. And I was so playful and so creative and so just amazed and enthused about life. And the 30 years of bullshit going sideways, that on one level, it needed to happen so that I can have this conversation with you now. Because if I was still that same little kid, I'd be like my daughter is now. And I wouldn't have the capacities or the capabilities that I do to help people who are struggling and suffering, because I wouldn't relate to it. I wouldn't understand it because I'd never lived it. And I went on a much, an off way, a less beaten path, and found my way back to the light. And I can bring people back with me, because I've got tools and language and experience, and I don't need to judge or punish or bribe or threaten. All that positional crap that quit working on me at 6, I don't need any of it with my clients. I'm not going to use fault and blame and guilt and shame.
Demetria, you want to go into your last question?
Yeah. So as we close out, I want to ask, what positive advice can you give to, especially males, because males go through this and they're very silent about it, or they suffer the abuse and the anger, the stages, and you've
Yeah.
overcome this. So, what
Yeah.
advice would you give? And I'm going to say specifically to males,
Yeah.
to help them heal their journey of sexual abuse.
Yeah. I would give this to the men and the women, but primarily the men. It is this. You do not have to get vulnerable to deal with this stuff. You don't. And I'm seeing, so many men are being told to be vulnerable, and it makes our skin crawl because we, in our core as men, we are protectors and providers. And to be vulnerable is to violate what it means as a protector, as a provider, right? You want me lubed up with my ass in the air naked. Really? Fuck you. It's not happening. So the problem is we still got to get that shit out. We got to deal with that stuff inside. So what I'm going to suggest to you is find people that you can be raw and real and open and honest with. And if you haven't had a time to do that, or a place to do that, or people to do that with, the raw and the real will come out as anger and rage, because it is passion and it is violation. And it is energy that has been suppressed and held back. Because I know as much anger as you've shown in this life, I know that's only the tip of the iceberg. I know how much you're holding back to protect the people you care about, but it's eating you in your soul. It's eating you in your heart. It's eating you in the back of the mind. It won't let you sleep. It wakes you up. It puts you to bed, but it's always there. It's like Venom, right? Like Venom the symbiote, right? He's just, Eddie Brock has got that power. It's just boom, it's right there when he needs it. And that shit is addictive, but it holds you in a prison at the same time. So if you can get raw, real, open, honest, the more you know how to do that, the more you don't need to get raw and real. You can just be open and honest, and there's no more storms because you've owned it from the first. You've owned it from the rip, right? So that raw and real, that's not for our wives. That's not for our kids. It's not fair to make them weather those storms. And when that stuff comes out, I know the tension you're under. I know the pressure you're under. So find a guy you can respect. Find a guy you can be comfortable with who has walked the path, who's ahead of you to help guide you. He will be able to tell you how to avoid the stumps, avoid the stumbles, keep your head held high. Because the fact you're listening to a podcast like this, the fact that you're entertaining a conversation like this, the fact you have a family or a friend or a member of your life who sent you this to listen to and said, I need you to listen to this guy because this conversation fucking matters. That's the crack. That's how the light gets in, right? Every breakthrough begins with a breakdown because we have to crumble the old order. We got to crack the stones. We got to crack the walls for something new and better to take its place. And I know it's hard to trust. It's hard to believe. It's hard to have faith. It's hard to be raw and real and open and honest because so many people didn't listen. So stop arguing for your fucking limitations. Stop arguing with me about why you deserve to be punished or why you deserve to be stuck. Because the fact that you're even having the energy to argue, you want more. You want something higher. You want something deeper. And the door is open, but you have to ask. People who are fans of consent are not going to come into your life and take over for you, but you can ask them to help. Help will always be given to those who ask, and you got to ask the right people, the right places. So raw, real, open, and honest. Kill this whole thing about telling men to be vulnerable. Vulnerability keeps men at effect. It keeps men in a victim mindset. Raw, real, open, and honest. That's how you begin to lead like a king. That's how you begin to stand in your own power because you share your own truth. And once you tell the story, guess what? Nobody can throw it back in your face. Because all you say to them is, I know, I already said that. I already owned it. What else you got? And if they can't give you more resources or help you tap into more resourcefulness inside yourself, fuck them. Because they're trying to use your story to keep you small.
We would also, like to give you the chance to participate in Shameless Plug as we do all of our guests. So you see all of your information scrolling here at the bottom. If you can let our viewers know if your story has resonated with them, how they can contact you, utilize your services, your consultant services, where you have your books for sale, anything that you want to draw traffic to, maybe something that you advocate for, your socials, anything really, you have the floor.
Absolutely. Thank you. I am the only Jeremy Roadruck on the internet. I am not shy. I am super easy to find. And the biggest thing I would tell you guys to go do is go do the King's Compass, right? I have figured out how to take personal development for men and turn it into a game we can win and stop all this kumbaya circle jerk crap, get in the drum circle and go in the woods and tell stories and whatever. Not that any of that's bad, right? Please understand, no fault, no blame, no guilt, no shame. All the tools are awesome. But what happens is I will give you a heat map. It looks like this. And we can begin to look through. These are the 9 areas over here, right? These are the 9 areas you guys got to master. How to handle wounds, problems, and games. That's all the inner child work. How to get your identity, be present, be powerful. That's all mastering the man. But leading like a king is being a visionary, protecting and providing. Where are you on that journey? What is solid and what needs work? No judgment, just ownership, right? I'll give you a quick example. I had a dad and he rated himself 2 out of 10 in patience. Okay. Or 2 out of 10 in presence. All right, cool. Tell me what's going on. Why did you give yourself a 2? Well, I've got a boy, 2, and another one who's 4. And after about 10 minutes of them with their mom, I just get so damn angry and I just yell at them and I don't want to be that dad, but damn it, I don't know how to get them to listen. And it makes me so angry. Okay. What would be a 10 out of 10? I never get angry at my sons. That's a good standard. I don't know that it's fully realistic, but it's not my life. So, but for you, 10 out of 10, never get mad at your sons. What if you could go an hour, 60 minutes of them yelling and screaming and melting down and you're calm, cool, collected the whole time? Oh my God, that'd be amazing. Cool. Amazing's not a number. So 0 to 10 me, be at least a 9. Oh yeah, at least a 9. Fantastic. So right now, 10 minutes is a 2 and an hour would be a 9. What about 30 minutes or 20 minutes? Would that be a 3? Yeah. Okay. I can get you there in 30 days, guaranteed. 30 days or less, guaranteed. Because why? I know how to de-escalate the kids. I know how to de-escalate yourself. I know how to create new games. I know how to change communication patterns. This isn't a winnable game. You don't have to live in that anger. Now, where's the anger coming from? Maybe there's deeper stuff to deal with. That's fine too. We can have that, but let's solve the crisis and then we'll get to the deeper stuff, right? So nurture the boy, mash the man, lead like a king. And those are the 3 levels. Most men's work is so stuck on master the man, but being powerful, this is Margaret Thatcher, she said, being powerful is like being a lady. If you have to tell people you are, you aren't. If you have to flex the car, if you have to flex the suit, if you have to flex the wallet, if you have to flex to prove to people that you are something, you're not. The fact that you need the validation, it's not there yet. There's more to go. Because the truly highest level people have 0 fucks about whether you know it or not, because they know it. And they walk in the room, they're able to be present and playful. And then we can factor in power. But if someone has to have power first, who hurt you? Why are you living in such scarcity? The truly powerful make others powerful. It's win-win or no deal. So that's my invitation. Go check out leadlikeaking.com/quiz. Take the King's Compass quiz as the first entry into my conversations. And then we'll set up a call. We'll have a conversation, no charge, just 30 minutes. What's going on? What did you like about it? What did you learn from it? Where would you like to go? Would you like help with that? The only thing that matters with me and my clients is, do you want to be right or do you want to get results? Because if you want to be right, keep doing what you're doing. How's that working for you? If you want to get results, that's my business.
I love it. Thank you so much for tuning into Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast and being so transparent and just honest. Thank you so much, Jeremy. I truly, truly, truly appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. These kind of conversations have to happen. And the more we do, right, the more we bring things out into the light, that's how we get healing, right? In the dark, all we get is rot and decay. We need to bring it out and open it up.
I would agree. I want to thank everyone for tuning into Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we're going to continue to share life experiences in hopes that it will help someone connect to start their journey to healing. Please tune in each and every Monday at 8 p.m. On YouTube, and then our Unfiltered Unspoken platform on Facebook. And like, share, and subscribe. Please come follow us. Please come subscribe. That is free. That helps us continue our journey and our nonprofit and all the work that we do. And we're going to continue to share life experiences. Ain't that right, Sid?
That's right.
That's right. All right, Jeremy, please hold. Peace.